Welcome, 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 guys, to Real Perspectives. I am your host, LeTonya Moore. And listen, today's show is an absolute doozy. We are talking about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, right? Last time we talked about the hellified holidays with the nosy relatives. So this week we're going to be talking about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. But Mario and I are going to be focusing on the double standards in dating. So y'all know there's always an issue when it comes down to things like interracial dating, right? And the double standards. But Mario, I'm going to pitch it to you to give them a little bit more background about this show, how this show came about, and some things that we want to look at and talk about and invite them to be a part of today.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. So glad you could join us today. And this is a hot topic. We started talking about Serena Williams' marriage, Eve and her husband, Eve the rapper, Janet Jackson, and Meghan Markle getting ready to marry the prince. And we started looking at how many prominent Black women are marrying out of their race. So we decided to talk about it a little bit among ourselves about what would happen if you were going to Christmas dinner, because Christmas is about to come up. And ladies, you brought Chad. Is that the name we use, Chad or Bradley?
No, we said Chandler.
Chandler. All right, Chandler. You bring Chandler to the house for dinner. Now, nobody knows that you're dating outside of your race. How would that dinner go? How would that fellowship go? So we want to talk about that tonight because we want to deal with, is there a double standard? Can the Black man bring a white girl home or a Latino girl home or a Filipino girl home? And the family kind of be like, okay, well, that's just him. But what happens when the princess brings home Chandler, Bradley? Is the family going to be okay with that? Maybe some of you out there today, and forgive me for being a little hoarse. I preached last night. We had great church, so I'm a little hoarse tonight, but I really want to talk about this. We want to talk about it because LeTonya and I have engaged deeply in this conversation.
Yes.
But we want to see if there's a double standard. Is there a double standard? We want to hear about your experiences because we see a bunch of prominent Black women that are now dating and marrying outside of their race. What is the cause of that? What are women saying about that? What are men saying? Now, we do know this, that we can look at the ESPYs, and in one year, there were so many athletes that had white women with them that Black sisters were going completely ballistic. They were going berserk, all right? And so they listed a number of reasons why they felt offended. So I wonder, are sisters, Black women, offended when they see their other sisters with someone outside of their race? LeTonya, what you think about that?
Listen, I can't speak for the entire. I cannot speak for the entire race of Black women, of course. So the question I think is one that's very valid, because I think that there's always an issue, because I think that from our perspective, we sometimes wonder, well, man, with all the beautiful, accomplished women that there are available, that look like us, why can't you find her? And I've heard a number of things as far as what guys say. I'm not personally offended, if that's what a woman wants to do. I know that if when you reach a certain age, like some of the people that you mentioned in your list, they're a little bit older, right? Mm-hmm. They're later in their 30s, or some of them even, probably 40 or better. So that's a little later in life to be connecting with people. And so, I mean, if that's what they found, then I can't really necessarily knock it. But I would say that, personally, I would like to see it be different. I love Black love. I think it's beautiful. I think it's something that's great. I think it's something that should be celebrated and promoted. But we could talk about the psychology behind it and what I personally think the threat is. But I know that's kind of beyond our show.
Well, it is a very sensitive issue. I mean, it's a very sensitive issue, and particularly with the racial climate being as it is right now. You know, we have a real hot racial climate right now. I think on the OWN network now, they're doing this series. I think she has a series called Black Love, where she's highlighting the relationships of Black people together. And I caught a couple of the shows, and they're very good shows. But I think that it is a very sensitive subject, and it always has been. It's not new, but it is very age old. You know, where people have dated and married outside of their race. I remember when there was a controversy around Malcolm X messing around with somebody white or what have you, being so strong in the Muslim community or what have you. But I guess the question for me is, how do Black women feel when their own sisters date outside? Is there still the disdain or the anger from her going outside of her race, or is she celebrated and understood? Because what I have heard is a lot of sisters say, oh, I understand, because, and then they go and list a myriad of reasons why that would be acceptable because of the state of the Black man. Now, I don't know if that's coming out of their experience, which I'm not ever going to discount anyone's experience with anybody. But it's almost like when I heard it, it was like, Black men are this, Black men are that, Black men ain't that, Black men ain't this. They said that as though white men are somehow better. That white men.
But we hear that same argument. Like it's always see here's the thing, it's always the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's always like, yeah, well, you know, I mean, Black women, they hell raisers. They hell raisers, you know, they ain't submissive. And all this sort of stuff. You know, I was talking with someone recently, and I was sharing with them. I said, you know, that whole thing about submission, I think I would just invite everybody to don't go to Webster's, right? Don't go to Webster's and get the definition, because where that comes from in general is it typically comes from some type of religious backing. So whatever your religion is, if that's where that's coming from, you want to learn and you want to research. But for those of us that tend to be of the Christian faith and we're relying on that in the Bible, I'm going to encourage you to go back and check, you know, the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic, because I think what you're going to find is that submission is not what you tend to believe and what people are promoting, right? Submission does not mean subservient, right? It doesn't mean that you now lose your power to move and operate. But that's what's being pushed. And that's what sometimes men think, you know, that I've heard people say that that's been their experience. Oh, you can't submit to me. You can't submit to me. What you doing? What you want us to submit to, right? So then when you're met with that question, now you're a hellraiser, right? Now you're confrontational. Now you're all of these things. So, you know, at some point you get tired of being labeled. And I think that goes both ways. Mm-hmm. I think that goes both ways, but you get tired of being labeled. But before Mario responds, mm-hmm. I want to encourage everyone to please comment. This is a very important discussion. I was having a conversation about this, and I was telling somebody today that this was going to be our topic. And they were telling me how this very thing is an issue in their country. So they're very concerned about this. The other thing too is, guys, share this video, invite other people so that they can share their perspective. So I just wanted to put that out there, Mario, before I know you're ready to go on in. But I tell you what, I think you make an excellent point. I think that when we really break this down, everybody has their perception. You see, everybody has a perception of how this whole thing got to be like it is. And I think that what we're really looking at is the experiences of each individual is what it is. And I think I need to keep prefacing that tonight to say that by no stretch of the imagination are we trying to discount any person's experience with dating or marriage. But I think it's important to realize that we're talking about humans. Now, we understand race, but we also must understand humanity. So to me, as far as the Black man saying, well, the Black woman is a hellraiser, well, I have seen some hell-raising white women who are straight nasty, straight crazy. All you got to do is look at Snap
That's all y'all got to do is to look at Snap any Sunday or any day that it comes on, and you will see that there are hell-raising, murderous, treacherous white women. So it is not so much that a white woman can't be a hellraiser or that she is all that submissive. But what I think happens is the interpretation is really centered around sexuality. Is that it seems like the white woman, because she becomes subservient in that role concerning sex, seems to be more subservient until she puts battery acid on your steak. All right. So what we've got to wake up and realize, I believe, is that everybody's experience is different. You know, there are some very peaceable Black women they're very peaceable. They seek to get along. They seek to love. I don't care if she's Latino or Mexican or whatever. I think it has to do so much more than that. And I think it's easy to try to compartmentalize all of this to be a race issue, or shall I say color, because to me, there is no race. We're all humans. It has to do so much with the way you're raised and how you see relationships done. So my thing is that when we say she's a hellraiser, is she a hellraiser because she holds you accountable or he holds you accountable? Because a lot of men are hellraisers. A lot of men, you can't please them. A lot of men are bitchy, for lack of a better word. You know, a lot of men go through a lot of changes and they have the emotional base many times of a woman. And so
now you listen, you done open up a lot, because we got some comments on the floor that I think I want us to address these. So I want to start with, first of all, thank you guys so much for your comments. Mario and I love y'all. You know why? Because you guys help us keep it real and share perspectives. But Gloria Hollins was addressing something that you asked earlier. She said there comes a point when you stop pursuing that which isn't interested in you. Mm-hmm. Brothers are very vocal with their opposition to dating Black women, and that's okay. But let a sister make a choice to follow suit without any vocalizations, the floodgates open. She says, I'm all for love, and it doesn't matter who, as long as you are treating my relative or friend like a queen, like the queen she is, I don't care.
Now, listen, I saw Gloria's comment, and I totally agree. I totally agree that there are some, but I think we want to be careful tonight not to generalize or group everybody together, because there's some men who are strictly Black women. They want to stay within their race. And now there are, as Gloria said, there are a lot of men who have sworn off. I think Ayala did a show about Black men that had sworn off of Black women, and that was a controversial show. And I think that Ayala, of course, did that for ratings. You know, I think that was a ratings issue because she did not have brothers on there who are absolutely saying, I don't date outside of my race. I love my sisters. And I think that I don't want our community to get it twisted, that there are men out here that don't want nothing to do with Black women or whatever, because I see just as many trashy behaviors in women of all colors. I see trashy behaviors in men of all nationalities. Okay, low down, dirty, no good, nothings. So I don't want us to become jaded, but Gloria's point is very valid. Is that men can get even if they deal with a white chick, you do not go outside your race woman. So there is a double standard even within the community. So I guess we do need to see what's really going on.
Absolutely. So I want to get to these two comments. Safir Malik says, with all the issues going on with Black people, especially Black men, I'm personally offended when I see a Black woman with a white man. There's no way that white men can truly understand a Black woman's struggle in a white supremacist society. He says, my daughter cannot bring Craig or Todd to my house. Just keeping it real. I love my Black women, point blank.
And I get that, Sophia. I totally get that. But I think what I want to hear is the other side to that, though, is that can your daughter say that, you know, she can't bring it to your house? Okay, that's your rule. But I guess what I'm interested in knowing is that can the reverse happen? You know, can the reverse happen? Because what about the Black men who do not understand the Black woman? And I think that it's so easy to say that, you know, that, okay, well, she can, you know, and I promise you, for the sake of conversation, I just want us to be balanced. My thing is that argument is that, you know, Black men don't understand when we say that all the time. I don't understand these women. I don't understand these women. Man, I'm telling you, I don't understand. We say that all the time. You know, I do agree that there are some cultural differences. There are some seriously cultural differences that exist, and we have to, you know, give space to them. But then, to me, it always comes back to love, though. Now, you can feel strongly about race relations, as I do. I feel very, very strong about race relations. But when it comes to equality, I'm all for equality. When it comes to race, it's a little bit more when you talk about coming together. So I'm not going to get into my opinion about that tonight, but I'd like to hear you all's about that. I'm not going to say anything about that tonight. But I do feel like we do need to get to that point where we ask the question. I think Saphir made a good point, because that's personally how he feels. I'd like to hear other people say what they feel about that, because that's very interesting. Because the truth of the matter is, this Christmas may hold some surprises.
Yes, you might show up and Todd may be in the car.
Yeah,
I mean, you just never know.
Absolutely.
But you know, it's definitely a touchy topic. I know that there when we think about the historical context, right? And I know, again, these are things that are with, you know, outside of the scope of where we're wanting to go really today, because we're just really opening up the discussion today. But I think that it is valid to honor those feelings. But here's the thing: what about that man or woman that truly feels or does not feel loved, like you said, in a same race relationship? They have not had a same race relationship where they feel loved. They decided to date someone else, and they do feel loved regardless of any of the other stuff, you know. And I think that that's something that's very important, because I think oftentimes when we hear people say, well, I don't date, you know, this one or that one because, you know, they're a hellraiser or they lazy or they, you know, whatever, right? Take your pick. It's always something, right? If you think about it, though, at the end of the day, it's not because they Black, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. You dealing with a person that's an individual, and whatever it is about that person you don't like. I've always told people, look, if you tend to say, man, every time I date, you know, somebody, this is what turns, you know, this is how it turns out, then you need to start pointing a finger at you and looking in the mirror, right? If all you're dating is hellraisers, then you might need to ask yourself about your selection process, right? You may need to get to the root about why you dating a whole bunch of hellraisers. You know, Mario, you know, you done had that conversation, right? You go home with Jerome, right? And mom in the kitchen cussing everybody out, telling all the kids, you know what I'm saying? Get your ass out the kitchen.
Yeah, because some
so
people
that
like
means
hellraisers.
she just like that. But what I'm saying
like
is, you say you don't like hellraisers, but then you take me home to meet your family, and your mama and grandmama raising hell in the kitchen, and your sister beating the kids outside, raising hell out there. So you can't don't come for me, because you might think that I'm a hellraiser, right? When everybody around you a hellraiser. That's why you dating hellraisers, because that's who raised you, a house full of hellraisers. I mean, Mario, what you think about that? You know it's the truth.
Oh
you know
God.
It's the truth.
Well, listen. Well, I tell you what. As much as we don't like some things, it's also sometimes the thing that we are drawn to and turned on by, because it's what we know. Now, that's just the truth of the matter. And here's the other part of that, is that I think that every person has a right to their opinion, but I think a lot of it has to do with the era in which you were born. If you were born in the 50s, the 60s, you may have a different opinion versus what we see in this current generation, where they are saying, KKK, you're not coming in our town. You neo-Nazis, you're not coming in town to do that. We are not standing for it. I don't care what my mama and granddaddy and them believed about Black folk. I don't believe that. We have a generation now that is really making better efforts to come together. I think it has a whole lot to do with the era and time that you were born. Your feelings have been shaped around that. Now, I'm not saying that these young people don't have a problem with racism now, or that they are not racist based upon, again, how they were raised and what they see. And I think that everybody has a reason, a right rather, to choose who they want to be. We're going to go to the comments, but let me say this real quick. my next question, and we'll get to it after we read this comment, is for a Black woman, is it more acceptable for her to bring home any other race as long as he ain't white? Because see, that may be the problem. See, we hear always white. So I'm asking the question, is it okay if she bring home Jose or Carlos?
Pablo, say Pablo.
Pablo, right. Is it okay? You know what I'm saying? Is that a little bit better because the skin is darker? I'm not sure, but we get into it. Read the comments on you talking about.
Okay. So it's a few. So they're coming in now. So I'm going to start with Antonia. Antonia Todd says, personally, I would not have an issue bringing home or my children bringing home a person of another race as long as there's love, honor, and respect in the relationship. So that's really good. Gloria Long says, the Black man today can't handle that Black woman today. Black women today are much more powerful. They have voices and make a point to be heard. Plus, Black women don't mind getting their hands dirty to make money. The quote, she can't have everything. I disagree with that statement. She can and will balance it out. Okay. I think let's put a pin right there. We got another comment. Let me see. Well, you know what? Let me read Terry's, and then we definitely have to address what Gloria brought up.
Okay.
But
Terry Wise.
Yes, she says, I have also met Black men who are unattractive and who maybe don't have enough money and have been rejected by Black women. The younger generation is influenced by media, thinking the brother has to have status in order to be with him. I believe we should be looking at standards, but unfortunately, there are going to be many women and men who remain single because the standards have changed. You know, that's a lot of meat on that bone, Mario.
Hey, Terry, we got to pin that with you. I know
we got to pin that.
Yeah, hey Terry, that is great. We're gonna pin that and really deal with that.
Yes.
Let's deal with Gloria's for a moment.
Okay.
LeTonya, go ahead. What you got to say about Gloria's long statement?
I'm trying to get my lighting right, y'all. Sorry about that, but man, that's tough. You know, it's tough because I totally understand what she's saying. I don't know that it's a handle thing. You know, think about the words that we use when we talk about each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, submit to me, you know, submit to him, handle her. And I think that the challenge that I have is that everybody sees lots of times the Black woman as this challenge, as this Mount Everest that needs to be conquered. You know, and so what has happened is now there's a thick coating that has been created. Now you don't like that, right? Because at the end of the day, you got a group that has said, well, you know, I ain't gonna sit back. Not to say that some don't do this, but for the most part, I ain't gonna sit back and wait for somebody to pay my bills, make my money, or give me money. Now, some that might do that. I don't subscribe to that, but I don't knock the people that do, right? If that's how you do it, that's fine. But, you know, I'm always quick to say I'm going to make my own money. And guess what? If I don't have the money to do it or go somewhere, I ain't going. Because you ain't going to leave me in Las Vegas or LA or Cabo because the trip on you. You know what I'm saying? You just ain't going to do that. See, let me tell you, I can go to the fair. I ain't got to ride nothing. I ain't got to eat no cotton candy. I don't even need a funnel cake, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I ain't got no money in my pocket, I don't need to be there. Mm-hmm. A lot of women don't subscribe to that. They like, well, shoot, if I'm with you and we somewhere, you need to take care of that. I don't knock that. I personally don't believe that because you ain't gonna have me eating a whole lot and I don't have the money to cover no meal.
Right.
But that's just me. You know what I'm saying? I've been in situations where people have threatened and said, well, we out in such and such, but you know, you mess with me, you know, you'll just be out here because I didn't want to pay for a $200 meal. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, guess what? I ain't gonna never be like that no more. But that's a LeTonya thing. That's a personal thing. I don't fault all Black men for that, but it just happened to be a Black man that tried to pull that.
Well, let me add this though, and I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point to make because that's out of your experience. I think we need to also be careful how images of submission have been fed to us through the media. I think that we're discounting what submission looks like Because if you grew up in the 50s and 60s, you saw submission through Carol Brady and June Cleaver. You saw when we got to being on television, we saw Weezy Jefferson stand up to George. We saw Florida stand up to James, even though he was strong and the head. And I think that those images have been overlooked a little bit. Harriet on Family Matters. We see Claire Huxtable. She was a strong woman, and there wasn't that battle going in there. So the images, it's amazing to me how we still are trying to reach back to those images where we saw what submission looked like. But then when we look at our shows that they finally put on television, we still do not see the woman that some Black men say they want. We still don't see that. That's still not what we are seeing before us. Some of the women that we admire, absolutely are not that subservient woman. So we have to be very, very clear that we don't want to make the issue about what we believe submission looks like and who is the because if you remember, Claire would get with Cliff in a heartbeat. So we have to really look at that. Tanya?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm listening to all of the things that you're saying, and I think that it's 100% on point. But here's the thing. So the question is, where did it go wrong? Who are we looking to teach and train us and all of that? You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, that's where the challenges come in. Mario, we have a couple of comments on the floor. Oh, wait, y'all have y'all own little show over here. Let me see. They have their own little show in the comment.
Let me read this comment. Let me read this comment. Sophia said, Black women that tend to date white men do not tend to be as feisty with white men because they do not want that white man to view them as a negative, stereotypical way. And I hear that, but I tend to disagree because white men that date Black women, that is part of what they like about Black women. You see what I mean? That's a part of what and I think we need to talk to white men who date Black girls, because a lot of times it is that they like about them. They love the neck rolling. They love the soul sister thing. We have to remember that. We have to remember that if we go all the way back to slavery, outside of the control issue, white men loved the strength of the Black woman and that she was feisty. All of them were not just hateful white men. They found themselves attracted to a lot of the strength that Black women had. And so we have to be able to kind of see that. Now, I believe psychologically, when the Black man's mind was played with by white men, I believe that it did something to him and his woman. And so I think there's just a whole lot of psychological view in that. I'm not saying that this isn't real, that this isn't a real destructive matter that took place to us. But I think that Black women are just as feisty and can be just as feisty with white men as they are with Black men, especially if that's who she is. If that's really who she is, that's who she is for real. I think that some of them may play that role, but at the end of the day, if push comes to shove and shove get to pushing, we're going to see where the rubber meet the road. Go ahead, Tanya.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all, listen, I have to tell y'all know I am broadcasting from the Lido Lounge. You may hear some background noise. It is absolutely okay. Ain't no ruckus going on. Ain't no ruckus going on over here, guys. But listen, I agree. I agree with that, to a certain extent, Mario. I think, again, that sometimes we run into the trouble of trying to figure out things that really are kind of beyond our realm of thinking, right? That's not the experiences that we are having. However, there are still some throwback from a lot of those things. And I think that even some of the comments that we're seeing here, are throwbacks from, some of the things that you mentioned. I think that, so Divine Warren says, tell them dudes that don't understand Black women to read the book by, okay, I need a phonetic spelling, but the book is called The Guide to Understand the Black Woman. But it looked like, was it written by a woman? Somebody let me know if a woman wrote this book. Please tell me that a Black woman wrote the Guide to Understand the Black women. Somebody let me know that. So I don't know, but let me know that, right? And then Saphir, okay, you saw that about the feisty part. And then Devon says again, I think a lot of men say that to have an excuse to date outside of their race. Images are very important, and Terry agrees with that. Mario, I'll address that, Mario, about the images, because it sort of goes along with what you were saying about the perception about what's being put out there. And I think oftentimes we don't really understand the value of propaganda. Yeah. Right. There is a reason that people use propaganda. Right. And if you look at the historical context of all of those things, you look at the historical context of quote unquote Black love, right? Realize that a lot of it was born out of pain. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it does deal with pain and strife and, you know, all of those things. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, how, you know, that's going to be perpetuated and passed down at some level. So those are some, I think, just some smaller things that we really do have to think about.
Well, I think that you're absolutely correct. Propaganda is very powerful. I think that one of the things we need to understand too is that the black man and woman has been portrayed as super hypersexual. That we're savages. That this is all black folk want to do is have wild, crazy sex. It hasn't ever been romanticized. We rarely saw love images between blacks in movies. We only saw white people doing the love scenes. And I think that has been a part of the attraction that even white women have for black men is a super hypersexuality that is portrayed in that's how they were on the slave block. The white man made sure that he was seen as that savage, never thinking that his woman was going to be attracted to that, even though they kept them away from the slave trade because they didn't want them to see what the black man was packing. So they made her stay away from the slave trade. However, there was something that they would say about them that made her interest become piqued. The white man loved that black woman because of how they portrayed her as this super sexual person. Many times she had to be that way for survival of her family. I think we need to really be careful, like you said, of the propaganda and how images have been sewn into us to believe a certain way, even about ourselves, you see. And so when we look at ourselves, I think it's very important, though, for us to remember, if we don't stop and pay attention to how we feel about each other, how can we say anything about how other races feel about us? Because if you see your brother cheating on his wife and you will go along with that and you're okay with that, you see him not working, not paying his bills, you see him having 3 and 4 different families, and you don't have a problem with that or you don't address that, then it means you have no ability to address if she decides to go outside and date anyone else. I think that we have not taken care of our own people. We have not talked about how mean and nasty and hateful we are to our own women, how they are to us. Why is that? White folk ain't got everything to do with that. And I think that we need to probably deal and clean up at home first before we even address that. And I don't think that anybody just says, oh, I'm tired of dating black men, so I'm going to go to Latino men. See, again, the double standard is still within our own community. Because somebody can bring home a Latino chick or a Mexican chick, and it still don't seem quite as bad as bringing home a white chick. But there are still cultural differences. There are still, and let me say this. Mexicans had slaves. Latino folk had slaves. Black folk sold their own folk into slavery. So if y'all gonna deal with that, deal with the whole totality of that, because it's not about we're getting confused about it. I'm not telling you to bring anybody home or that we shouldn't feel a certain way. But if you don't want to be judged as a savage, because some white women only want black men for sex, they ain't finna take you home. Let me tell you something. I was working somewhere. I'm not going to even call the name of it. But this white student that went to the university had a black boyfriend. Her parents lived in northern Alabama. They were wealthy real estate moguls. She was in this relationship with him, but whenever they were planning to come down here for a football game, because they had a box at the stadium and all that stuff, he had to go. She packed up all of his stuff. He would have to move out and go back home to his roommate. He could not be around. She took all semblance of him away, but she loved him, but knew she could never take him home. It was clear within that family structure, you can never bring him home. You couldn't bring home a Mexican. You could bring home anybody outside the white race. But she loved Black folk. She did stuff in the community to help Black folk. And so I think that we need to be fair enough to not judge everybody. Now, I'm not saying there ain't some low down folk in any other races, but we got some low down folk in our own. So my thing is that we have to be fair across the board, so that if somebody comes to dinner, what's the difference between Bradley or Chandler and low down Tyrone? Well, come on now. Let's just go and talk about it. Because Tyrone low down. Tyrone got a record. Tyrone beat women. Tyrone gonna steal your stuff out your house while y'all not looking. But go ahead, that dinner. Go ahead, son.
Now, Mario.
Yes.
Why Tyrone gotta have just everything wrong?
Well, you know, Tyrone, listen, Bradley probably has white collar crime. I get that. But I'm saying, if you don't want, the double standard is you will accept Tyrone as long as he's Black with a record, but not Chandler, who may not have one because of his race. I'm just simply saying that. But again, if Tiffany brings home that person, there may be a problem. But what if Tyrone decides to bring home Becky? Yeah. Then it's almost looked like Tyrone done scored. It looked like Tyrone done pulled a white girl and he has some type of a Trump going on, and it's okay. So there is indeed a double standard within our own community where that's concerned. You know, what we got in these comments, what Terry said, that propaganda is used to manipulate the perceptions of people and groups. Absolutely. All day long and twice on Sunday. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Terry also says, you're right, Mario. We have to take a look at ourselves, and we must take responsibility of teaching, mentoring the younger generation. Some of the older ones need to help too. We have kids having, let's see what else she said here. Having kids, kids having kids. So I think that, I guess for me, it may be a little uncomfortable at first, but I think that I've been uncomfortable when people bring other Black folk in the circle to me too. I've been just as uncomfortable, to be honest. Now I have to work through, because I'm a 60s baby. And those of you that maybe have followed me on social media, I'm very strong about race relations, but I'm very fair. I'm about equality and fairness. I don't celebrate when Black folk do crime. I made a video not long ago during Houston and Miami, the flooding and the hurricanes, when Black folk loot. I made very strong statements about that, about our own people. So all I ask people to do is to be balanced in their argument. Just don't be one-sided, be balanced, So I just feel like if I bring home, I'm gonna say very honestly, I wonder sometimes, is it just the skin color thing? Because once again, we won't deal with the fact, is it okay? And I want somebody to talk to me in the comments about that. Is it easier for those of you that don't like that concept of dating outside your race? Is it just white people, or is it okay to bring brown people who may be of another nationality? That's a good question for me. Is that the case? Is it okay to bring an Indian with brown skin? Is it okay to bring someone from Israel as long as their skin is brown? What about an African? Because believe it or not, there are many, many Africans that don't like, Black, regular Black. I don't even want to say the word tonight, but I'm just saying they don't want to be called with us. They don't believe that they're with us, people. All of you Pan-Africanism people, you need to wake up and talk to a real African, and you'll find out they think they're better than you. So you need to come on in. You talking about staying woke? Get woke for real, because they do believe that they are much better than we are. They come over here and get educated in our universities, but still do not want to be called a Black American. They are African, but us, we ain't Black American. We're not African like that. That's why it always trips me out when I see a lot of Black folk doing this whole African thing. You know what I'm saying? Just, I'm Hebrew and listen. Ask those Africans for real how they feel about you. And you will find out that many, I'm not saying all of them because we may have some African listeners, but I have encountered them who have a real problem with us in America talking about all this African stuff. I remember, I'm from Atlanta. I remember telling you one time when everybody was wearing Kenta cloth. You remember that era? All the little black folk was going to get Kenta stuff. And so, you know, the colors represent something different. And they represent their male Kenta, female Kenta. And these dudes at Clark Atlanta University were wearing the ones that were for women. And one of the African guys said, "Hey man, what you got that on for?" And he was like, "Man, I'm representing." He said, "You are stupid. Our women wear that. Why do you have that on?" See, because we're trying to emulate something that we have not thoroughly researched. So I just want us to be educated since we on this whole woke campaign. I just want everybody to get up out the bed. Next.
So I have been looking, there really has not been a lot of comments, just, you know, to kind of go along with what you were saying. So let's see, William Daniel says, as a Jewish man who is attracted to Black women, I would say that it's hard on both sides to understand what it means to be in an interracial relationship. So many times we look at the skin color of others instead of the person, him or herself. We play the blame game with each other instead of being honest with each other. So what you think about that?
I totally agree with it. You know, I totally agree with that. We do play a lot of the blame stuff on each other. I do believe that. But I think that we are intelligent enough and we have enough education now to sit down and have a cohesive, comprehensive conversation about it. We should be. You know, we should be able to talk about this thing and even agree to disagree. Yeah. And find that place where because we have to do business with other races. And so we have to be able to see that everybody is not like that. Just like I don't want to be thought of as the Black thug. I don't want to go in places and be, you know, thought to be the person that's about to rob the store. I don't want to have to go in and feel that way, even though it happens. But I don't want to be guilty also of the very thing that I'm accusing everybody of. I don't want to, and I know that we trust people, but I don't want to go around believing and get so jaded by this propaganda to believe everybody. Because when I looked at the Charlottesville incident, I saw white people fighting against white people. There wasn't so many Black people out there fighting against those people. There were other white people that are saying this is not okay. You're not going to do this, shutting down neo-Nazi meetings. So we have to be open enough to realize that not everybody's like that. Not say that we don't encounter them, because we do. I was looking at something on Facebook today where a guy was at the airport and he was in priority boarding. And this white woman told him, "You need to get out of the way. You know, they're calling for us. You all need to go sit somewhere else." And he says, "I am in priority." He showed him the boarding pass and I'm on here. So he ended up telling her, because she still said, "Oh, well, you must be military," not believing that he could afford a first class ticket. And so she was very clear about her intent to degrade him or whatever. But he said, "No, what you've done is met a nigga with some money." Okay. And so everybody in line started clapping. They were celebrating the fact that he checked her. So that kind of solidifies to me that not everybody feels that way. Not everybody's on that. You know what I mean? But Sophia did say something that just tripped me out. Sophia is crazy. He said, "You're right. Africans don't like us and I don't like them." I just, you know, that's Sophia. But I do believe that we do kind of belittle people when we don't understand, or we group everybody together. So I think that it has to be a concerted effort made to try to understand that what we see is what we see, but that's not everybody. You know, go ahead, Tonya. All right, go ahead, Tonya.
Okay, you know, I'm in a public place, so yeah. It's taking me a little minute, but you're absolutely right. I think that you know, everything that I'm taking some time also to look at the comments as well, and I think everybody's concern is valid. But when we really sort of get back to the double standard of it all, mm-hmm. because that is what I think hurts the most, right? When there's double standard, there's judgment, there are all of these things, you know, that are involved nobody ever wants to feel judged, right? But at the same time, you know, you don't want to be the person that's just sitting around waiting on Jerome or Tyrone when, you know, Chandler or Bailey or you know what I'm saying, whoever maybe willing, able, you know, to do the things that these other guys, you know, are not willing to do. And that's just from a woman's perspective, I think, but a man's perspective too. And so I think that you have to respect people's decisions. But here's the thing about coming to dinner. Now, on the flip side, when you're in that relationship, you got to understand that everybody ain't going to accept it. So you got to be okay with the fact that you also have to give them room to disagree with your choices.
That's right. That's good.
And if you don't like the fact that they disagreed with your choices, then you don't need to go over their house, right? That's right. You don't need to go over there because you already know that they don't like Chandler, right? Or they don't like Nikki, you know, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't make sense to go over there when you know that this person, you know, grandma, granddaddy, your uncle, your aunt, whatever, they don't like that situation. So why put that person in that situation if you know that that's who you want to be with it? So I think it really comes down to respect, you know, all the way around. I was looking at the comment. I think that
Jonas Ben.
Yeah, read it.
I Jonas. Yeah, it was Jonas. Jonas had a very good comment. Thank you, Jonas. Thank all of you guys for these comments because they're really, really good. Jonas said, "It's not how they feel. We have to know from which we've come from. Back to the color of our skin is what the white skin has done to our people." Now, I'm not saying all whites are guilty. Absolutely. It is a skin color thing.
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. It is about but here's the other flip of that. We're talking about double standards. There are some families don't want you to bring a dark skinned person home. If you ain't dating light skin, you ain't in the family. Don't bring them darkies over here. That's what they feel like. Now that's just the truth. Some people right now, I counsel people all the time that are still dealing with the color issue, the light skin, the dark skin issue. That's very real within our community. We know Black Girl Rock. All right, we know love your own skin, melanin, all that stuff. But that ain't we still are not there. It's just like you can't bring a fat girl home, or you can't bring a fat guy home. What you bringing that dude home for? He fat. She fat or whatever. It depends on the family. But the double standards, since we're talking about skin color, what about the internal hatred that exists within our own community concerning skin color, hair type? Listen, if it wasn't so, the weave store would go out of business. It's so. It is so. It is so. It is so. It's just the way it is. We have people that have problems when you date dark-skinned people. We've had comedians like old Black Kevin Hart. Now, you black as Ace of Spade, talking about Black women don't have good credit. Dark-skinned women don't have good credit. You know what I mean? All of that foolishness. Those are the stereotypes. We have a whole systematic structure where in videos, you see light-skinned girls winning. Once you see a Black girl, a dark-skinned girl come in the picture, all of a sudden you're turned off. We got a community right now, a young generation that may like white people, but also don't like dark-skinned people. They do not. They have nothing for dark-skinned girls. They have nothing for that, period. So we have to really deal with the double standard within our own community because it has been actually the center of a lot of hurt. I know people right now that are discriminated against. If you got a dark-skinned family, the red bone is discriminated against, hated, because she's the red bone. She seems to be, treated better because that's the way the system is set up. It's the system. We have to understand the psychological trip. The lighter child gets better treatment. The darker one is considered the black sheep of the family, literally. So before we can deal with the outside or the external, what are we going to do with this internal war that's going on before anybody else come to dinner? You see, because some of this is growing up. We've grown up with that. And so it extends outward. It starts internal and then it moves outward. So that's why I think that when we talk about double standards, we have a subculture of double standards within our own community time. And I think that before we can dog out somebody bringing somebody else to dinner, we need to talk about how you don't even like the fact that you are not light skinned or the light skins don't like the dark skins. Come on. No.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, that conversation been going on for 400-500 years, right? So at some point, you know, again, some things, you know, may or may not change. But what I see is when we talk about this double standard, right? Sometimes there's hostility across the aisle, right? That right there is an issue. Regardless, you can't, you know, people have to honor their feelings, right? You have to respect a person's feelings for sure. But then when there's hostility or hatred or, you know, all of these things about, if that's what those people want to do, that's what they want to do. Not to say that there's any level of agreement. You know, I know that a lot of people have been like very, very vocal, you know what I'm saying, about it. So I think that I again, you know, believe that it still has to go back to respect, right? It still has to go back to, what is my relationship with this person? Do I respect them? Do I honor them? Right? Because here's the thing: if it's just like the list of people that you named at the top of the show, I personally don't know any of them.
Yeah.
Right. So it really makes me know, never mind one way or the other. But that changes though when you start to talk about like my nieces, you know, because I don't have any daughters, you know what I'm saying? So that may start to change when you talk about that. But in this scenario, I can't really necessarily say that I have a problem with it. I'm kind of I don't remember who said it. I think it may have been Gloria, or it may have been Antonia, but somebody said that I can accept it as long as there's love, honor, and respect, right? But like you said, but then you also look at Snapped, or you know what I'm saying, one of them, you know, one of them shows, and then you start thinking like, hold on now, you know, Forensic Files, you know, you know what I'm saying? So yes, I think that there's always that thing, you know, in the back of your head. But I know today's show, and I know we're winding down, but today's show is really about dealing with how to get through that double standard, because there is one. And I think the double standard flows both ways.
Well, I agree. And I think that the double standard will always exist, particularly with the propaganda that's going on in America right now, with this race war that our president is trying to start and all of his constituents are trying to start, the class war. And I think it's always been there, but it seems to be more heightened right now. And we have to be careful how we get in it. I think one of the things I say to people in counseling a lot of times is, when I hear these types of discussions, not necessarily about the double standard in race, but period, is how do we factor love in? At the end of the day, how do we factor love? Because we can say, okay, it's all about love, but what do we say about the people within our own community that fight like cats and dogs? Like you said, LeTonya, earlier, you know, you go to your house and your aunts them cussing everybody out. Everybody's drinking, and when everybody get drunk, they fight and all that kind of stuff. But what about love? What about your need for love? What about your need for peace? And is that an individual need for love? I mean, I understand that if you can't get past the race thing, that's your individual preference. It is your individual right. But I think we have to be careful how we impose that on others. If that's what they want to do, at the end of the day, life is short. So if you say, I want love, and you experience love with someone outside of that race, then at the end of the day, doesn't love count? I mean, that's all I'm saying. I think we have to think in terms. What about love, though? I mean, because what are you going to do? Stay with somebody in your own race for the sake of staying with somebody black just to say, okay, he beat the hell out of me, or she made me get to, have a stroke because she got on my nerves and I couldn't stand her, but I stayed with her because she was black. I mean, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, nobody talks about love. Nobody talks about the need to be with someone who reciprocates the love. And I'm thinking that now we're focused so much on the color of the person, the race piece of it, but nobody has said anything about what if this person really found love and they found respect and they found honor. And I think that a lot of times when people say, well, I'm just tired of dealing with this particular race, I think that maybe that's an extreme statement that has come out of repeated failure. And I get that. Absolutely. I get that. That's just like saying, I don't want to eat no more. Everybody on the plant-based diet. I don't want to eat no more meat. because they keep saying that the meat got the cancer in it and all the yada 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 yada, and never thinking, but how do you make a bean taste like a shrimp? I don't want to get into that because I know they're gonna start attacking, but I'm just saying, how do you make a plant taste like a rib and look like a rib? Just asking. But I'm simply saying again that we still got to go back to say, but what if this person has one shot at love, one shot at respect, one shot at it, and it just happens to be someone of a different color? You know, but nobody wants to talk about that. It's just like, no, they white. That just can't happen. There's no love there. So, you know, I don't know. I stay right there to ask about love, though, even though I understand race relations and I understand where we've come from as a people. I understand the hatred toward Black people from other races, because we're hated in Australia. Australians don't like Black folk. You know what I'm saying? You can be hated in Madrid, Spain. They don't care for Black people, and they got the same color skin. So I think that we need to really dig a little bit and get woke for real.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to really, as we get ready to close, I want to say this with regard to love. That is so super subjective because there's so much in that. Because, see, the way that I perceive and give and receive love and all of those things and what constitutes love is based on my historical narrative, right?
Oh,
so that's beyond the show. We're going to do another show
about
this.
We're going to do another show on that.
But we have to think about it when we say, okay, love is the standard. Well, then what does that really mean, right? Because love is not to, don't get mad at me, y'all. Love is not a feeling. I know you think it is. It's not a feeling.
LeTonya, you going outside the scope of this?
I know. Wait, we gonna do a what is love, and we're gonna have some scholars on here, right? So they don't have to just listen to us, and then everybody make their own decision. But I'm gonna say this, and then Mario, I'm gonna turn it back over to you to close us out. This has been a very, I appreciate you guys for coming and joining with us every Tuesday, because you could really be doing something else. And the fact that not only are you here, you're engaging, you are adding to the real perspectives of this show. And I think that Mario and I cannot be more happy to spend our Tuesday evenings with you guys. He didn't know I was going to do this, so I'm going to say this real quick. So I'm going to have to say this next time because I was supposed to say this at the top of the hour and I forgot. In 2018, we are going to be doing some live in-person shows. Some of them are going to be in Huntsville. Some of them are going to be in the Auburn area. We're going to let you guys know way ahead of time. So any of you that are in that area, we want you guys to come and be a part of the roundtable conversation. So very excited about where that's going in 2018. We have a lot of other things. He doesn't even know this, but Real Perspectives has been requested to come out of the country, but I got to tell him about it first before I tell y'all all the details. So lots of wonderful things that are going on. So I wanted to say that, Mario, I'll shift it to you to take us out.
Well, again, thank you so much. And I'm excited about that news. You got to bring me up to speed. But listen, thanks. We really do appreciate you guys. And these conversations are very good. And I think that they're very needful. We need to talk about these things, you know, and we respect everybody's opinion and your perspective. And it's about being real. That's why we call the show Real Perspective. But it is about being real about where you are. We respect your opinion. Thank you for listening to ours and even the guests that we have on the show. So we're going to be checking out right now. It's about 7 o'clock. We thank you so much for attending, for listening to us and attending to these shows. We hope that all is well. Have a great rest of the week until we see you next Tuesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time right here on Facebook Live. Thanks again.